ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaskar my dear friends, this is video number 2 on Brahma Bindhu or Amrita Bindu Upanishad. I start this video number 2 by exposition of Sri Gaudapadacharya about Mano Nirodha. So, Sri Gaudapadacharya's exposition of Mano Nirodha, that is control of mind. In this connection, a study of Sri Gaudapadacharya's exposition in the Advaita Prakarana, a section of his commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad of the process of Mano-nirodha, which leads to the attainment of Atman's real being, may be found very instructive. Before describing the actual process, he proves by reasoning from experience the declaration of the Shruti that Atma is all and that therefore Manas has no real existence except as Atman. Maharishi Ramana has explained about mind in a very elaborative and detailed way that Atma and Brahma can be realized only by destruction of mind and ego. See, when we say destruction of ego and mind, it does not mean that mind and ego, they are independent entities. No. Mind and ego, they are non-existent in the real terms. The thoughts arising from Atma constitute mind and ego. So if these thoughts are diverted from going outward towards inward, these thoughts or mind and ego, they merge with Atma. This is the actual meaning of destruction of manas, destruction of ego and mind. Merging of mind and ego with the Atma is known as destruction of mind. And when Atma merges with Brahma, this is the state of super consciousness or samadhi. When a sadhaka reaches the state of samadhi, means his mind and ego are pure, or his mind and ego are destroyed. Means ego and mind are merged into Atma. Very simple thing. But we have to be very, very clear about these terms. Unless we understand the meaning of these terms, this Brahma Vidya will seem to be very difficult. When we understand the meaning of each and every term in clear terms, then this Brahma Vidya, Atma Vidya, or the knowledge of the self becomes very easy to understand. Now, emanation of duality from the one Sat. Sat means which is only one, which is absolute, and that is truth, no second. With this end in view, the Acharya proceeds to establish the emanation of the dual universe from the one Sat or absolute existence. In the section above referred to, he says, Gauda Padakarika Advait Prakarane Yatha Swapane Dvabhasham Sapandate Maya Manah Tadha Jagrit Dvabhasham Spandate Maya Manah. As in Swapna means dream, Manas, that is mind, acts by Maya, that is the Shakti of Brahma. As though it were dual, so in the Jagrat, Manas acts by Maya as though it were dual. It is indeed held by philosophers that it is the Manas regarded as an independent entity that transforms itself into the whole world of duality as experienced in the Jagrat and Swapna states, that is, state of awakening and dream. In our waking and dream consciousness, the fact, however, is somewhat different. It is the Sat, Brahma, Atma himself, that by Maya emanates into various forms of being, including Manas. And Manas itself is nothing but the Sat, as it is but a mere appearance of Brahma. Where a rope, for example, is mistaken for a serpent, the serpent has a real existence only when seen as identical with the rope. So also, Manas exists only in the sense in which it is identical with Atma, with the absolute consciousness, which alone is the supreme reality and on which the whole superstructure of Manas with all its modifications is based. Manifestation of the one as many. It may be here asked, how can Manas, identical with the one Sat or Atma, transforms itself into the whole universe? This question can be answered by an appeal to the Swapna state, dream state, in which the one Manas is found to transform itself into various forms of being, into the percipient and the various objects of perception. It is admitted by all philosophers that the dual world which presents itself to consciousness in a dream is a mere illusory creation of Maya, just as the serpent is an illusory appearance of the rope. In the Jagrata state, as much as in the Swapna state, it is by Maya that Manas transforms itself into various forms of being. Manas identical with Atma. It should not be supposed that we have thus admitted two causes of the universe, Manas and Brahma. For, as we have already pointed out, Manas is but an illusory manifestation of Atma, just as the serpent is an illusory manifestation of the rope, and as such, it is really identical with Atma and is therefore one and secondless. The Acharya says, verse 30, Advayam च द्वाभाषं मनः स्वप्ने न संशयः अद्वयं च द्वाभाषं तथा जागरन् संशयः. And the non-dual Manas appears no doubt as dual in Swapna, so too the non-dual appears no doubt as dual in Jagrat. It is Manas indeed which manifests itself as the whole seeming duality of Swapna. In the Swapna state, as everybody is aware, there really exists nothing but Vijnana or consciousness. There neither exist the objects perceived such as elephants, nor are the eye and other organs of perception awake by which to perceive them. So too, in the Jagrit or waking state, Manas, which is one and identical with Atma, the only absolutely real being, manifests itself as senses and sense objects. Thus, Manas is only an illusory manifestation resting upon Vijnana or consciousness, inasmuch as consciousness alone is absolutely real, being present alike in the Jagrit and Swapna states without any change whatever. And it is the Manas of this sort, that is, the Manas which is really identical with Atma, that presents itself in the form of all this dual world. Hence, no plurality of causes. Evidence that duality is nothing but Manas. It may be asked, What evidence is there to show that Manas alone differentiates itself into the world of duality and is rooted in mere avidya or ignorance of the reality, like a rope manifesting itself by illusion as a serpent. The question is thus answered in verse number 31. मनो दृश् इदं द्वैतं यत्किञ्चित् सचराचरं मनसो हि मणिभावे द्वैत्वं नैपोपलभ्यते. Seen by Manas is this duality, whatever is moving or unmoving in non-Man's state of Manas, duality is not at all perceived. The proposition is proved by resorting to anumana or inference in its two aspects, anvaya and vyatireka, positive and negative. When Manas undergoes differentiation, this world of duality is perceived. This constitutes the anvaya or positive proof, as in the following case of inferential evidence. Only when clay is present do we perceive the jar, which therefore in its essence is no more than mere clay. The proposition to be proved here is that the whole duality is Manas and Manas only, and the proof adduced is that the world exists only when Manas exists. The negative proof is of the following form. When there is no Manas, there is no world of duality. This negative aspect of inferential evidence is indicated by a reference to the following facts of experience. In a samadhi, Manas becomes no Manas. It attains to the state called Amani Bhava. It is then completely restrained from its subjective and objective oscillations and thus reduced to no Manas by Vairagya or indifference to worldly objects by constant meditation and by the discriminative knowledge as to what is real and what is unreal. Where, by instance, a rope is mistaken for a serpent, the serpent is reduced to no serpent by the knowledge of what it really is. In Sushupti or dreamless sleep, Manas attains to Laya or dissolution. In Samadhi and Susupti alike, the world of duality is not perceived, and whatever is not perceived cannot be said to exist. Maya, Maya or an object of perception can be said to exist only when we perceive it. Inanadhina Maya Siddhihi. Thus in Samadhi and Susupti, in which no Manas exists, the world of duality is not perceived and does not therefore exist. What is meant by Manas becomes no Manas. The foregoing statement may be objected to on the ground that, though not experienced in Samadhi and Susupti, Manas does exist even in those states, inasmuch as Manas is real in itself and always exists. This objection is answered as follows in verse number 32 by Acharya Gaudapadacharya. Atam satya anubodhen ne sankalpataye ne sankalpyate yada amanstam yada yati grahya bhave tadgraham. When, by the conviction of Atman's reality, Manas imagines no more, then it becomes no Manas, unperceiving for want of objects of perception. Atma alone is real, as shown by the Shruti, referring to clay as an example. All changing forms are mere names, a mere word of mouth. What we call clay is alone real. Just as clay is alone admitted to be real, being constant in jars and all other earthen vessels which are unreal, so it should be admitted that Atma alone is real, existing as he does in all objects that are looked upon as non-Atman. When this truth is brought home to the mind by the teachings of the Shastras and the Acharya Manas, owing to non-existence or unreality of the objects of thought, no longer thinks of them. In the absence, for instance, of fuel, fire can no longer burst into flame. Then, in the absence of objects of perception, Manas no longer undergoes differentiation in the form of perceiver, perception, and objects of perception, and thus comes to be no Manas. To our ordinary thinking in Vyavahara, Manas is Manas only as made of sankalpas, of thoughts and imaginings. These thoughts depend for their existence upon objects of thought, and the former cannot therefore exist in the absence of the latter. When the conviction arises that all is Atma and Atma only, then, owing to non-existence of objects of thought, Manas no longer continues to be Manas. That which then shines forth as consciousness is nothing but Atma. Thus, in the eye of one who is endued with discrimination, what we call Manas does not exist. Brahma is the absolute self-luminous consciousness. When Manas, whereof the existence is due to illusion, Brahma, thus becomes no Manas, that is, when it ceases to exist, that is, again, when it is known to be unreal, then there remains Atma alone freed from Manas. This state is described by sages as follows. Kalpkamalsam jnanam geya bhinnam parchakshte Brahm geyam majam nityam majenajam vibhudhyate. This is stanza number 33 of Gaudapada Acharya. Without any more imaginings, unborn is knowledge inseparate from the knowable, they declare. Brahma, the knowable, it is unborn and eternal. By the unborn knows. Then there remains knowledge which is not given to any imagining and which is therefore unborn, that is not subject to birth of other changes to which all phenomenal beings are subject. This knowledge, which is mere consciousness, is, as the Brahmavadins declare, none other than the Brahma, the absolute reality. Indeed, the knowledge of the knower never fails, as the heat of fire never fails. Accordingly, the Shrutis declare Brahma is knowledge and bliss. Reality, knowledge, and infinite is Brahma. In that knowledge itself is Brahma, the knowable. It is inseparable from Brahma as heat is inseparable from fire. Since it is unborn, it is eternal, nitya, ever existent. One may object to this as follows. If all duality, including manas, be unreal or non-existent, then there remains nothing by which Atma can be known, and therefore no knowledge of Atma is possible. The Shruti, however, says that it can be seen by Manas only, and Manas has been said to be unreal or non-existent. This objection is anticipated by the sage who says that by the unborn knows. The residual knowledge has been shown to be unborn, and this unborn knowledge is the essence of Atma. By that knowledge, the unborn, the Atma that has to be known, knows himself. Atma is one mass, as it were, made up solely of Vijnana or consciousness in a sense, just as the sun is essentially a mass of unfailing light. Atma is consciousness itself. Atma does not stand in need of external knowledge to shine forth. That is to say, by that consciousness alone, which is inherent in his essence, a knowledge of Atma is possible. No such thing as manas external to him is required for the purpose. Amani bhava not identical with Sushupti. It should not be supposed that, owing to the absence in it of all acts of thought, Samadhi is the same as Sushupti. This is explained in verse 34 of in Gaudapadacharya's Karika of Mandukya Upanishad. The behavior of Manas thus restrained, freed from imagining and endued with wisdom is clearly perceived by yogin In Susupti, it is different, it is not the same as that. We have said above, when convinced of the grand truth that Atma alone is real, as has been shown above, there remains no external object which Manas may think of. Having nothing to think of in the absence of external objects, Manas ceases to think altogether. Like fire having no fuel to feed upon, Manas grows tranquil. Then it is said to become Niruddha, completely restrained and neutralized. It is said to have attained to Samadhi, and it has been further said that when Manas becomes no Manas, the Dvaita or duality, which is but Manas in motion, is absent. Thus, when Manas is possessed of Viveka, of the conviction that Atma alone is real and the rest unreal, it becomes thoroughly restrained and freed from all imaginings owing to the absence of all objects of thought. Manas then gets resolved into Pratyagatman, the innermost self. This peculiar behavior of Manas is familiar only to the yogis. It is Vidhu Pratyaksha. It is intuitively known only to the wise sages, only to the illuminate. Since all cognition is absent alike in Sushupti and Nirodha states, the behavior of Manas in the Nirodha state is the same as in Sushupti state, that is, the behavior of Manas in Nirodha is quite as far as beyond consciousness as that in Sushupti, and therefore in the Nirodha state there remains nothing of which the yogins may become conscious. Answer to this objection: the behavior of Manas in the Nirodha state is quite distinct from its behavior in the Susupti state. So I end this video here. Next video will continue with Gaudapada Acharya's exposition of Nirodha of Manas. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Thanks. Namaskar.